Good morning, everyone. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than our usual travel videos. It's a beautiful day out. You can see the sun in the back. I've got a jacket on. It's a little chilly. My watch says it's like 51 or 52 degrees right now. I'm going to be doing some furniture repair. I'm going to reupholster a chair, do a little bit of work on it. We bought this when we first moved to Missouri. I thought I'd bring you along for the ride and let you see my process. We've got 3 chairs. I think I'm just going to do the one right now, or at least videotape the one. There's another one that's a little more involved. I'm not sure. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do it just yet. But anyway, thought I'd bring you along. So let me turn the camera around and show you what we're working with here. Okay, so these, I don't know. I kind of think that they might be mid-century. Not really sure. But we're going to definitely change the upholstery and recover this. As you can see, got a crack here, or where it's not real tight, and right here. I've looked at this when we first bought these a few months ago. They've been just sitting. And I think that somebody has replaced this seat pan, and they put it, either that or they reupholstered it. There might be a couple of layers of fabric under here. I haven't taken it apart yet, but it's kicked this out. So I'm going to tear into it and see if there's 2 or 3 layers of fabric in here, or if I need to shave this down just a little bit on each side. This is a shaped seat pan because this down here is curved. It's a very slight curve. It doesn't really come across real well on the camera, but it is slightly curved. So I'm going to tear into it and we're going to see what we find. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over. Not sure if, make sure I'm in screen here, or in frame. So this just pops out. As you can see, it is kind of curved. Let's pull the, let's just, so when you're doing upholstery work, there's a few tools you need to have. Of course, you're going to need some small hammers. You don't need anything where you're building a house or anything like that, but small tack hammers and various clamps, screwdriver, and staple pullers. This one I got at Home Depot. It's about useless. This is not, they might say that it's for upholstery. It's useless. This is the one you want. It works really well. Also, you really need some needle nose pliers and a few other things. I'll cover it when I get closer or get into this more. Definitely, I've got an upholstery staple gun. You can use one of those hand ones that you squeeze. You're going to wear yourself out if you do that. You're definitely better off having a pneumatic one or an electric one. They make those too. I just like the pneumatic because I've got a lot of pneumatic tools. I've got an air compressor, so it was a no-brainer for me. But and you can get them off of Amazon. I think I paid like 30 bucks for the one I've got. This is the second one I've got from Amazon. The first one worked great. It just had an accident at my last job, and I can probably fix it. I just don't have the little plate that I've got to machine, and I just haven't taken the time. So I bought a new one because you can never have too many tools, right? Okay, so I'm going to start in just pulling these staples out. And the way this works, you just dig in here. I just kind of go around and do one side at a time and just get the staple started. And usually I will have a little can or something just to throw these in, because if you don't, you're going to have staples everywhere. So I'll come back to you when, well, I'll just show you here real quick how I do this. So I usually just use my tool as leverage and just do that, just like that. This almost looks like it might be original fabric. A lot of people think that I take too long doing these seats because some upholsterers will just take and cut this and rip it off, but I like to take my time. Okay, so that's been about 5 minutes. Probably not even that long. I'm just getting all the staples up here, so when I put my chair or anything up here, I don't scratch anything. So let's see what we've got under here. So this does look like this is probably the original covering. This foam is in really bad shape. It's starting to just fall apart. So what I'm going to do is just take this off. It's a good idea to wear a mask. I don't have one handy, or I'd put one on real quick, but I'm only doing this one, so I'm not too concerned about it. So we're going to replace the foam on this, and but first we're going to see, get this cleaned up, and we'll get the chair up here and see if we can figure out what's going on with it. Okay, so looking at this, if you look on the inside here, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a cross piece. I don't know if we're in the frame or not. There's a cross piece right in here, or angle bracket on each corner. This one is got about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 inch gap between it. And this front rail has a gap. This has a gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that off and clean it up, glue it, and then clamp it, and then we'll go from there. Take this out. Normally when you're taking stuff apart, you need to label everything, what side it came off of, top, bottom, etc. Since this is only one chair and one thing, I'm just going to lay this out the way I took it off, and I should be okay. But always label, because it may look the same, but it probably won't go back the same way. All right, so looking at this, this is very, very clean, so that tells me they just didn't have glue on this. So I'm going to dig out some clamps, get an acid brush, and put glue on this, and see if I can pull it back together. Wood glue is stronger than the wood itself, usually, but it won't fill voids. Okay, so the best way to do this in this particular case is just, I'm going to brush the glue on here. I've got these acid brushes. They're cheap as chips. Just make sure you get the loose hairs out. I did see a guy the other day that said if they shed like this, take and clamp them in a vise or take a pair of pliers. Let's see here. And just kind of give them a little squiz. Kind of tightens it up and it keeps them from doing that. These are cheap. Usually what I do is I'll take this and use it, and then I'll get like a disposable cup or something and put about, just enough water to keep that moist, and I'll wash it out. And if you clean it out good, these will last you for a little bit. I really like this. I like the Tight Bond, but this works pretty good too. This is the Gorilla Glue, not sponsored, but if they wanted to, they could. And if there were glue residue on this, I would take this completely apart and clean it, because glue will not stick to glue. But there's no glue at all on it, so this was, I don't know, looks like it was a glue stove joint. There was nothing on here, so I'm just gonna lather this up real good with plenty of glue. It helps if you're ambidextrous in some of the situations like this. I can use my left or my right hand. How about that? I don't know if you folks can hear this in the background or not, but the birds are just a singing. They're so happy today. It's a beautiful day out. It's just chilly. And sounds like somebody's mowing their lawn somewhere off in the distance. Always clean up your squeeze out. Okay, so normally I would use clamping coils on this. This is my personal chair, and this has rubber feet, so I'm not terribly worried about marring it up. I think we're probably going to end up recoating it anyway. Either, I don't know, I think the missus might want to paint it. I'm not usually big on painted wood, but this finish is not the greatest anyway. I would use clamping coils. I think I'm going to get another clamp because I'm not getting a tight seal up here. There's an old adage that woodworkers can't have too many clamps, and that is absolutely true. You can never have too many clamps. All right, so there is a little squeeze out. You definitely want to have some. You don't want to squeeze too much, because that'll starve the joints. So take and wipe that up. I've got to find a towel here. But you definitely want to clean up any squeeze out. That squeeze out back here. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall these corner braces and see how if they help pull it in. Okay, so that's good and tight. Okay, so here's one of those situations where sometimes things you run into. I'm putting this brace back in. I didn't do anything to this side, but it's not cut right, so it's not wanting to fit and pull up snug. So I may have to, I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit and see if I can find a happy place, but I may have to trim it down. Okay, so I clamped it up and then run the screw in there with I just done it by hand. It was pretty tight. You got to be really careful. You don't want to strip screws out or anything and make matters worse, but I'm going to let this sit for a minute. Okay, so I've kind of got the chair cleaned up a little bit. It doesn't look great, but it looks better than it did. I've just kind of cleaned it up. There's a lot of gunk on it from years of neglect and abuse. We're going to move on to checking the seat pan and figure out if we're going to have to cut it down a little bit. I think we're going to have to. And it doesn't fit at all since I've tightened that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my table saw out and I'm gonna take and run each side. Okay, so here's the setup I've got. Got a sacrificial fence, and I'm just going to take and feed this through, right through this way on both sides, and then I will flip it over and do the end, just the back side. Okay, so this fits much better. It's got plenty of room side to side, front to back. I think when I put it back together, probably going to have to screw it a little, put screws in these cross braces because it's just not wanting to sit right. It's just the age of the wood. It's springing a little bit, but it'll be all right. Okay, so I'm going to set up and get ready to recover this seat pan. Show you how I do that. Okay, I'm going to see if I can explain this to you. This inside line here is the exact same as this. I just laid it on here, traced it out, pushed it down. Now I said 1/2 inch on each side. This is a 1/2 inch from here. This isn't, but I'll get to that in a minute. The corners, these are cut out for the chair post or the legs. Those I don't do the 1/2 inch. If you do, you'll never get it to set right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this a 1/2 inch. This other line is where I'm going to cut it. I don't have a regular foam saw, so I'm going to use my band saw. Somebody on YouTube said that that's the way they do it. And if it's on YouTube, it's got to be right? So another thing you're going to need is a really good straight edge. This is a drywall T-square, but it works a treat for this. So lay this on here like this. Line up my marks. And there you have it. So now all I got to do is connect the lines here, which I've already done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this square out. That'll give me something smaller so I don't have so much bulk on the bandsaw, and then I'll come back and lay this out 1/2 inch. This is already 1/2 inch. This is already 1/2 inch. So all I got to do is lay this all out, and we're good to go. Before I start cutting this, one thing to note: if you buy slabs of foam, it's always going to be cheaper than going to a fabric store or whatever and just getting enough for one chair. Usually, the place I used to work, our half slabs would come in at 24 inches by 72 long. This is 30 inches. Actually, they were a little bit generous. They gave me like 30.5 inches. That's good because usually you can only get one seat pan out of a width. This one is wide enough that I'm going to be able to get both. We've got 2 of these chairs. I'm going to be able to get both of them out of this section right here. So it always pays to measure and lay out before you start cutting to minimize your waste, because foam is very expensive. I got this from Amazon, so it was a little bit cheaper. Like I said, it's cheaper to buy a half slab than it is to go to your fabric store and buy just a square. This was like $35 for the whole thing. It's going to do both of these chairs, and we've got another one, and then we're hoping to start doing some more recovers, flipping furniture or whatever, just to make a little extra money, and I enjoy doing it. So let me get this cut and we'll go to the next step. Okay, so the bandsaw worked great. So I went ahead and I laid out my 1/2 inch lines here. I'm going to cut this just the same Again, if you don't know how to use a piece of machinery, don't do it without getting some training on it. Thought I would just show you how well this works. It's funny, this bandsaw, I'll zoom out here in a minute and show you how big it is. Well, I'll just do it right now. This is a big bandsaw. It's 14 inch. That's the depth of the throat that you can cut with it. But this bandsaw costs less than a good foam saw costs. That being said, you can get a cheap foam saw for about 150 bucks or so, but they're not real accurate. If you've got a bandsaw or got access to one that's set up, tuned up, you can do just as good with the bandsaw and save yourself a little bit of money and a lot of headaches. Okay. So normally I would shoot some spray glue on this, let it tack up, bond it, Bob's your uncle. But this ain't normal times because I don't have any spray adhesive with me. So we're just gonna go to the next step, which is gonna be, I'm gonna get my Dacron and we're gonna put it on there and start in. I gotta get set up and I will be right back. Okay, so I've got my new air nailer here. A lot of people don't realize this. I mean, people who actually do this do, but people who haven't ever messed with tools don't realize this. Air tools need to be oiled. The guy I used to work for, he seen me doing this one time and had no clue, and he'd been in the fabric business for 60 or 70 years, but an air nailer needs about 2 drops a day. If you don't do that, it voids the warranty. So I'm going to get set up here and I'll show you what the next step is. Okay. So the next step is we're going to cut our Dacron. We went to Joann's and got this, asking for Dacron, and they had no idea what we were talking about. I can't remember what they had it listed as, but if they tell you they don't have it, go and look. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of eyeballing here. Just trying to get a rough idea of where I want to cut it at. And I just take and I make a little mark there, a little mark here. This doesn't have to be precise when you measure it and cut it. You want to allow yourself more room than you think you're going to need. You're going to have waste. There's no way around it. But this is the way I do it. This is not the only way to do it. I'm by no means a professional. I have been doing this for about 7 years, but there's many more people out there been doing it a lot longer than I have. Oops, and I just rolled that on the floor with the sawdust and everything, but that's all right. We'll clean it up in a minute. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this out, and I'm going to mark the center of each side. Find my little square here, and we'll make some marks here. And I'll show you what these are for in a minute. It just will make our lives a whole lot easier when we get to putting the fabric on and put our marks. That's going to help us. Plus the marks won't show up once we get it put together. There we go. Oh, that's, I don't know. Let's try this other one here. Always do one in each, on each side right in the middle. All right, you get the idea. I'm going to come back when I got this done. Okay, so I've kind of fooled with the settings a little bit. I think I've got it dialed in. Before it was kind of leaving them a little wonky. This is the way you want them, nice and flat. So now we've got the corners. So what do we do with the corners? What I usually do is I take and I pull them like this and kind of get an idea. Then I take my scissors and I do a V cut right there, right there, right there, and there somewhere. I'll pull it, and then I'll just do about 3 staples across there. And let's do this one. So your corner's nice and tight, and that's going to make it lay real nice in the chair. Now these front corners, they're going to be a little tricky because they've got that inset. So I pretty much am just going to work with it and pull it tight. I just want to be able to get it to where that corner is pretty pronounced. You won't see it, but it's just going to make your life easier down the road when you go to put the cushion back in. So I went around and I found any staples that shouldn't be able to feel them too much. I mean, you're going to feel them a little bit, but any of them, some of them I had to pull out and redo, but I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got our cushion ready to go. Next, we got to get our fabric. So I'll come back when we've got that. And okay, so we've got a decision made. This is a floral. This is like a canvas. So for those of you who don't know, I spent the last 7.5 years working for a fabric wholesaler in Florida before we come to Missouri. And through the years, we bought all kinds of fabric, and just no rhyme or reason. We just saw it and liked it. And this is one of them, one of the pieces. Okay, so I think this is what we're going to go for, being in the centers, this little thing here. Thing to know about fabrics with patterns on it is the patterns repeat. So if you're doing more than one chair or whatever, and you want them to match, you need to make sure you've got enough of that same pattern in the repeat. And this does. This is a fairly wide piece of fabric. So what I'm going to do is, I like that. I like it right there. So I'm just going to take and flip it upside down. And I'm going to take this, find my pin wherever I put it. And actually on this side, I'm not even going to mark it because it's so close to the edge. But on this side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up here. And actually, I don't even really have to mark this side, but what I would do is I would just take and mark this like this. And that's going to tell me where I need to cut along this right here. And then I'm going to mark on my widest spot. Give yourself plenty of room. Don't be afraid to waste a little bit of fabric. But I'm going to mark on my widest spot here. If I can get it to cooperate. Somewhere right in here. In here, and see how we did before we move on to the next step. And again, I'm not a professional. Professionals would measure this and cut out all of them at the same time. And I can do that. I just prefer not to on something like this. So what we're going to do, usually if I've got a bunch of them to do, what I'll do is I will take each one and I'll get it close to the size. I would trim this down, which I probably will now. Go ahead and trim it. This is, again, I'm making more steps than it needs to be, but I'm trying to show you how, if you've never done this before, how to do it. So what I'll do is I will get my square and I'll lay this on it to where it is square with the edges. And if you're doing pieces that need piping or whatever, these don't, but this offcut would be good for if you've got a piping foot on your machine. I think we're going to have to get one because the other chair that's our living room chair, it's got piping. I think it's got double welting on it. I'm not sure if we're going to try to put welting back or just do something different, but these little offcuts would work okay for, you don't get a whole lot out of it, but every little bit helps. Okay. So let's see how we done first before we go any further. Again, yep, looks good. So now what I do, I fold it in half. Found my scissors here. Fold it in half, and then this little piece right here, we're just going to lop off. We're going to do the same here. Just lop off just a little notch. And then we'll take and we'll line those up. And we'll do the same on these sides. Now these sides I didn't trim down, but it'll be all right. This is just showing you how to do it if you've never done this before. So now, let's double check, make sure this is the way we want it, which it is. Now these things that we lopped off, you're going to put that right on your line. First staple, more than likely, you're going to have to pull it out, so don't get too hung up about it. So we're going to pull this, and we're going to pull it as tight as we can, tighter than you think it should be. I could probably go even tighter than that, but I don't want it to pucker too bad. It's going to pucker a little bit until you get it completely done. But you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go each corner, or the center of each side, put a staple. Center of each side. Oops. Misfired. What the hell? I'm out of bullets. Okay. What I used to do was I would take my Sharpie. A lady, good friend of mine that I worked with, told me this hack. Take your marker, mark the last 3 or 4 staples. That way, if you're in the middle of something like this, and you have a black staple come through, you know you're about out of bullets and that you need to think about reloading. And what I do is I squeeze the foam and pull the fabric at the same time. That way it'll help you get the right tension on it, because the goal is to have the top of the seat kind of crown when you're done, like this. See, now that doesn't look right because I haven't got the corners yet. You can see though, whenever I get the corners done, it's going to crown real nice. So next we just pick a side, and we're going to take and, like I said, usually you'll have to pull one of your staples out, and this is one of these instances where I'm probably going to have to pull this one out. I'll grab my pulling tools and everything. Oops. If you can, try to pull them out without breaking them off. This is oak, so it's really, really, if you break it off, do yourself a favor, drive it in, because if not, you will rip your finger open. Alright, so I'm going to pull this a little bit tighter than it was. Put a staple there. Probably do another one because that one didn't look good. See if I can get this out without breaking it. Oh shoot, I broke it. Well, thankfully it's on the bottom, so that shouldn't be visible. Okay, so now we're just going to take, again, squeeze it, pull the slack, get it as tight as you can. This really works your upper arms. Doesn't look like it would be that tough, but it sure will wear you out. There's days I've done 10 or 12 of these in a day, and my shoulder would be screaming at the end of the day. And now we do the other side. I had a lady tell me that done this, who had done it for many, many years. The first ones that you put in don't necessarily sink them completely down. Leave your gun out a little bit, and that way if you have to redo it, it's not so hard. I just didn't listen to her, I guess. At least on this one. Thanks, Tina. She's the one that gave me this tool. She was a super nice lady that was one of the workrooms that the place I used to work for used, and she would come in when I was and deliver stuff she was working on and see that I was working on stuff, and she would always give me free pointers. Super, super nice lady. Very knowledgeable. I think she lived in Newport Richey, Florida. Okay, so now we're going to do the corners. What I usually do, you can do micro pleats or whatever. On something like this, I just I didn't staple all the way up to the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pull that as tight as I can. And I've got this little tool that I made. This is just an old screwdriver, and I ground it down. I use it to pull staples sometimes, but I ground it down and it's nice and smooth. And if I have to, I can adjust it in there like that. So, but you want to make sure when you do that you don't have no wrinkles. Like I just had a little bit of a wrinkle there. So what we'll do is we'll take that, do that. Couple staples. And if you have to redo it, just pull them out. I think I'm going to have to redo this one. Again, this is some pretty hard wood. I think this is oak. Might be maple, hard maple. I can't remember now. Yeah, that's oak. So it really grabs these staples and makes it kind of hard to pull them out. There we go, got that out. So now, just want to make sure I get that nice and tight. And that might be something that most people wouldn't even think about messing with, but I like to make sure it's nice and tight and no wrinkles. So same with this. So now you can see it's got a nice crown. So then I'll just take and I'll pull this. There's a V. It's kind of hard to see, but that's setting right in that V. So I'm just going to do that. Pull this side and kind of lay it over. And there you have it. The main thing to do is, see there, black. That means I'm almost to the end of my staples, and wouldn't you know it? Perfect. All right, so here we go. Lastly, we're going to trim this, and then I'll get our deck cloth and we'll be ready to finish this up. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I got my cambric. Some people call it deck cloth. The trade name is cambric. I'm just going to cut this real rough to size first, because I got a pretty good size piece here. Taking. All right. So what I like to do first, let me get some more staples here, since I'm out of bullets. I can lay them in there. So what I like to do is I usually roll the edges just a little bit. It makes it look a little neater. And I'll put one staple in the front. And actually, I will probably just go right on across. I'll go ahead and get the back here and get it. So what I do is, you don't have to have a lot of staples in the cambric. It's just to make it look finished and to keep, I guess, dust and whatnot out. But 5 staples, whatever. Just don't go up to your corner with it, because you're going to have to do something with the corner. So I do about 1 in the center and then 2 on each side of that. Somewhere like that. So I'm just going to trim it a little bit. This stuff is almost, it's like paper. So what I do is I just kind of make the corner look neat. Fold it at a miter. So like a, I guess a letter fold, you might call it. Boom. And then we do the same thing. I just take and put it in there, kind of roll it where it looks good. Center. Sides, a couple. Can't tell you how many times I've had to take this stuff off and redo it more than once. More than once on the same chair, as a matter of fact. But after you do it a few times, it's not real hard. It's just kind of fiddly, or it can be. All right. Okay, so this is the finished product. The seat sits in there nice. I don't even think I'm going to have to put any screws in there like I thought I was going to have to. Still got to figure out if we're going to refinish this or not. Let us know in the comments. Do you think we should refinish it? And if we do, and there's enough interest, I might do a video showing how I refinish this, or if we're just going to paint it or what. I think the missus was talking about maybe painting it white. Let us know. So that's it in a nutshell. It's not real difficult. It only took me a couple hours to do that, and that was including gluing everything up and fooling with the camera, moving it, and setting everything up. It's not hard to recover. I enjoy it. If I could do it for a living, which I probably could if I put my name out there, I could probably get plenty of business, but that would be all right with me. I love fooling with furniture. I know we're a travel channel, but obviously we're a travel, cooking, and furniture channel now. I'm going to be doing some more furniture and more woodworking projects here in the future. I finally got a shop here. I still have to get it all organized, but if you guys would be interested in seeing any of the projects that we do or that I do, leave a comment. Let me know. Let me know if there's anything you would like to see me build. I've really got I've got a couple of things in mind that I really want to build. One of them, I've always wanted to build my own guitar. I've got the machinery to do it, I just haven't done it yet. I also want to build some tables and maybe some more chairs, do chairs that I can upholster myself. And anyway, let me know what you think. We'll see you in the next video.